Family is supposed to be your strongest support system, but what happens when that trust is betrayed by someone you've loved since the day they were born? I'm Harold Mitchell, a 68-year-old retired electrical engineer from Portland, Oregon. For 43 years, I worked 60-hour weeks, missed family vacations, and sacrificed my own dreams to build a secure future. I did everything right, saved diligently, invested wisely, and finally reached the retirement I'd earned. But one desperate plea from my grandson threatened to unravel it all, pushing me to a decision that would change our family forever. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The first signs of trouble appeared on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday last April. I was in my workshop, tinkering with an old grandfather clock I'd been restoring for months. The methodical rhythm of fixing things had always calmed me. It was predictable, logical, and rewarding in ways my family relationships often weren't. The garage door opener hummed, followed by rapid footsteps approaching the workshop door. "Grandpa, are you there?" The voice belonged to my grandson, Tyler. I set down my tools and removed my magnifying glasses. "Come on in, Tyler. What brings you unannounced?" The door swung open to reveal my eldest grandson. At 26, Tyler had my daughter Melissa's auburn hair and his father's tall frame. He was dressed in what I assumed passed for business attire these days. A wrinkled button-down shirt partially tucked into khaki pants, and those expensive sneakers that cost more than my first car. "I've been trying to call you," he said, slightly out of breath. "Phone's on silent when I'm working. You know that." I gestured to the small table where my phone lay face down. "Everything okay?" Tyler's expression shifted from mild irritation to what I recognized as his pitch face. I'd seen it whenever he wanted something significant, whether it was borrowing my car in high school or asking for tuition money during his brief college stint. More than okay, actually. That's why I came by. He pulled up the spare stool and sat down, leaning forward with uncharacteristic intensity. "Grandpa, I need to talk to you about an opportunity, the biggest one of my life." I nodded cautiously. Tyler's opportunities had a spotty track record. There was the food truck venture that lasted 3 months, the dropshipping business that never shipped anything, and the cryptocurrency investments that mysteriously evaporated. "I'm listening," I said, though a familiar wariness crept into my voice. "So, you know how I've been working for Build Now, right? The construction tech startup?" I did know. It was the longest Tyler had held a job, nearly 9 months as some kind of sales associate. Melissa had been cautiously optimistic that he might finally be finding his footing. "Well, I've been crushing it there. Like, seriously crushing it." Tyler's hands animated his words. "I brought in 3 major clients just last month. My boss says I have a gift for relationship building." "That's great, Tyler. I'm proud of you." "Thanks. But here's the thing. I've realized I'm basically making other people rich. I'm bringing in clients worth hundreds of thousands, and what do I get? A salary that barely covers my rent and a pat on the back." I suppressed a sigh. This was familiar territory. Tyler's perpetual belief that he deserved more, faster, without the years of building experience that everyone else seemed to require. "So what are you thinking?" I asked, already suspecting where this conversation was heading. Tyler's eyes lit up. "I'm going to start my own company. Build Better." He paused, clearly expecting me to appreciate the cleverness of the name. "It's the same basic concept as Build Now, but with key improvements. I've already outlined the business plan." He pulled out his phone and began swiping through slides of a presentation. Most of it looked like stock photos of construction sites and colorful graphs pointing optimistically upward. "The construction tech space is exploding right now, Grandpa. Everyone's trying to digitize and streamline processes that have been the same for decades. Build Now is just scratching the surface." "And you think you can do it better?" I asked. I No, I can. I've been on the front lines with clients. I understand their pain points in ways my bosses don't. Tyler's confidence never failed to impress me, even when it wasn't entirely warranted. I've already got verbal commitments from 2 clients to switch over if I launch. This is a sure thing. I'd heard sure thing from Tyler before, but something in his demeanor seemed different this time. There was a focus I hadn't seen previously. What's your timeline for this? I asked. That's why I'm here. Tyler put his phone down and met my eyes directly. I need to move quickly. One of our competitors just raised a huge funding round, and they're expanding into our territory. There's a narrow window here. I nodded, waiting for the inevitable ask. Grandpa, I need startup capital. $300,000. The amount hit me like a physical blow. I had been expecting him to ask for money, but the figure was staggering. 300,000. Tyler, I know it sounds like a lot, he interrupted, but it's actually lean for a tech startup. It covers 6 months of operating expenses, initial software development, legal setup, and a small marketing budget. I stood up and walked over to the workbench, needing the distance to process what he was asking. $300,000 was nearly a third of my retirement savings, money I'd spent decades accumulating. Tyler, you know I want to support you, but that's a significant portion of what I have to live on for the rest of my life. I've thought about that, he said quickly. You'd be an equity investor, not just giving me a loan. When we succeed, your investment could multiply several times over. Think about it. You could actually increase your retirement fund. Or lose a large chunk of it, I pointed out. Tyler's expression hardened slightly. I thought you believed in me. This was the emotional leverage I'd come to expect. When logic and business sense weren't convincing enough, Tyler knew exactly which buttons to push. It's not about believing in you. It's about being practical. What does your mother think about this plan? Tyler looked away. Mom doesn't understand business opportunities. She still thinks the only secure path is working for someone else for 40 years. She's not wrong about security, I said. That approach worked for me. No offense, Grandpa, but times have changed. The people making real money today are taking risks and building their own things, not waiting for a gold watch and a pension that might not even be there when they retire. His words stung more than he probably realized. My generation had worked within a system that promised security in exchange for loyalty. His generation had seen those promises broken too often to believe in them. Let me think about it, I finally said. This isn't a decision I can make on the spot. Tyler seemed to deflate slightly, but quickly recovered. Of course, take a few days, but I'd really need an answer by Friday. I have meetings set up with potential developers next week, and I need to know what my budget is. After Tyler left, I sat back down at my workbench, but my focus on the clock repair was gone. $300,000. The number kept spinning in my mind. Later that evening, I called my financial advisor, Barbara Thompson. We'd worked together for over 20 years, and she'd guided me through market crashes, tax law changes, and my transition to retirement. Harold, you know I can't tell you what to do with your money, she said after I explained the situation. But I can tell you that investing that much into a startup, especially a family member's startup, carries significant risk. What would it do to my long-term financial security? I asked. Worst case, if the business fails and you lose the entire investment, you'd need to reduce your annual living expenses by about 20% to ensure your savings last through your projected lifespan. That assumes no major health issues or other unexpected expenses. The reality of what Tyler was asking began to sink in. It wasn't just money. It was my security, my independence, my peace of mind. Has Tyler developed any successful businesses before? Barbara asked. No, I admitted. He's had several false starts. And does he have experience managing people or large budgets? Not really. Barbara's silence spoke volumes. I know what you're thinking, I said. Harold, you're my client, not Tyler. My responsibility is to you. From a purely financial perspective, this investment doesn't align with your retirement goals or risk tolerance. After hanging up, I sat on my back porch watching the sunset. My modest backyard had been my wife Linda's pride and joy before cancer took her 5 years ago. The Japanese maple we'd planted on our 25th anniversary cast long shadows across the lawn. "What would you tell me to do, Lynn?" I whispered to the empty chair beside me. Linda had always been the family peacekeeper, but she was also surprisingly shrewd about people's motives. She could see through Tyler's charm to the impulsive core beneath. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "Did Tyler come see you?" "Today," I replied. "Yes, we had an interesting conversation." The typing bubbles appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. "Whatever he asked for, please call me before you decide." The next morning, I invited Melissa for coffee. We met at Riverside Cafe, a quiet spot overlooking the Willamette River. My daughter arrived looking tired, her nurse's scrubs replaced by jeans and a sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. "How bad is it?" she asked after ordering a large coffee. $300,000 for a construction technology startup. Melissa closed her eyes briefly. He told me it was for a business opportunity, but wouldn't give details. I had no idea he was asking for that much. "He seems really committed to this one," I said. "More so than his previous ideas." "Dad, you can't seriously be considering this." Melissa leaned forward. "Tyler has never finished anything he's started. Not college, not his paramedic training, none of his business ventures. Why would this be different?" "People can change," I offered, though without much conviction. "Yes, they can. But change takes time and usually happens in small steps, not dramatic leaps." Melissa sighed. "Did he tell you he maxed out his credit cards trying to invest in some NFT scheme last year? Or that he still owes Jeremy $3,000 from the food truck fiasco?" Jeremy was Melissa's ex-husband. They'd divorced when Tyler was 16, but Jeremy had remained financially supportive of Tyler long after he had any obligation to do so. "He didn't mention that," I said. "Of course not." Melissa stirred her coffee with more force than necessary. "Look, I love my son, but he has always looked for shortcuts. When things get difficult, he abandons them and chases the next shiny opportunity. Maybe he's finally found something he's passionate about." "Dad." Melissa's voice softened. "I know. You want to believe in him. I do too. But $300,000? That's not just giving him a chance. That's potentially sacrificing your security. He says I'd be an equity investor, that I could make money if it succeeds. And if it fails? Which, statistically speaking, most startups do." Melissa shook her head. "After Mom died, you promised her you'd take care of yourself, that you wouldn't let family obligation put you in a vulnerable position." The memory of that promise hit home. Linda had made me swear it during one of our final conversations, knowing that my instinct to help family could sometimes override my self-preservation. "I'll think about it," I assured Melissa. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's all I ask." 2 days later, Tyler called again. "Grandpa, have you had time to think about what we discussed?" "I have," I said carefully. "I've been considering all angles." "Great, because I've been doing more research, and this opportunity is even better than I initially thought. The market size is actually twice what I estimated." "Tyler, I've also lined up a potential CTO, this brilliant developer who worked at Build Now before me. He's willing to take a reduced salary for equity, which makes our runway even longer." "That sounds promising," I said. "But, so can we meet tomorrow to discuss the details? I can bring the updated business plan and the operating agreement my lawyer drafted." The mention of a lawyer gave me pause. Tyler was moving quickly, making commitments based on money he didn't yet have. Tyler, before we go any further, I need to be honest with you. I've spoken with my financial advisor and with your mother. His silence told me he understood what was coming. I can't invest $300,000 in your startup. It's too much risk for me at this stage of my life. Grandpa, please let me finish, I said firmly. I believe you have potential, and I want to support your growth, but I need to be responsible with the money I've saved for retirement. The line went quiet for so long, I thought we might have disconnected. Finally, Tyler spoke, his voice tightly controlled. Mom got to you, didn't she? She never believed I could succeed at anything. This isn't about your mother. It's about making sound financial decisions. It's always about risk with your generation, Tyler said, frustration bleeding into his words. You don't understand that sometimes you have to take big swings. This isn't just some random idea. This is my future, our family's future. Tyler, Grandpa, do you know what happens if I don't start this company now? Someone else will. I'll spend the next 20 years watching other people get rich off my ideas while I struggle to pay rent. His words stirred something in me. A fleeting doubt about my decision. Had I been too cautious throughout my life? Has my risk aversion limited my own potential? What if we discuss a smaller investment, I suggested? Something that would help you get started without compromising my security? It doesn't work that way, Tyler said, his voice hardening. This isn't a hobby or a side hustle. Building a real business requires real capital. Either you believe in me enough to invest properly, or you don't. The ultimatum hung between us, and I felt a familiar pattern reasserting itself. Tyler's emotional leverage versus my practical concerns. I'm sorry, Tyler. My answer is no. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken accusations. When Tyler finally spoke again, his voice was cold and distant. I thought you were different. I thought you actually saw my potential. He paused. I guess I was wrong about a lot of things. The call ended, and I sat holding the silent phone, a knot forming in my stomach. Had I made the right decision? Or had I just damaged my relationship with my grandson irreparably? That night, sleep eluded me. I kept replaying the conversation, wondering if there was a middle ground I had failed to find. Around 2 a.m., I got up and went to my home office, where I kept a small safe behind a landscape painting. Inside was a folder containing documents that only my lawyer and I knew about. 5 years ago, shortly after Linda's death, I had made a decision that even Melissa didn't know about. Concerned about potential healthcare costs and the possibility of needing long-term care, I had transferred a portion of my savings, $200,000, to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. It wasn't illegal. I reported it on my taxes and paid everything I owed. But it was my absolute emergency fund, money that no one could access but me. As I looked at the account statements, a plan began to form in my mind. Perhaps there was a way to help Tyler while protecting myself, a way that would teach him responsibility while giving him the chance he so desperately wanted. The next morning, I called Tyler. I've been thinking about your proposal, I said, when he answered. Can you come by the house this afternoon? I want to discuss some options. Options? His voice betrayed cautious hope. What kind of options? Let's talk in person. 4 o'clock? I'll be there. I spent the rest of the morning preparing, making notes and reviewing documents. I wasn't sure if what I was about to do was wise, but it felt right. A balance between supporting my grandson and protecting myself. As I waited for Tyler to arrive, I rehearsed what I would say, knowing that this conversation could change both, our futures in ways neither of us could fully predict. At precisely 4 o'clock, Tyler's BMW pulled into my driveway. I watched from the living room window as he checked his reflection in the rearview mirror before getting out. He'd dressed more formally today, a proper button-down shirt tucked into pressed slacks and leather shoes instead of sneakers. The effort wasn't lost on me. I opened the door before he could knock. Come in. I've made coffee. Tyler followed me to the kitchen, where I'd set out 2 mugs and a plate of Linda's favorite shortbread cookies, made from her recipe that I'd finally mastered after dozens of attempts. These were Grandma's, Tyler said softly, picking up a cookie. She'd be proud of you for pursuing your dreams, I said, pouring the coffee. She always said you had an entrepreneurial spirit. Tyler looked surprised. She did? Of course. Remember when you were 10 and set up that car washing business on the corner? Linda said you negotiated prices like a seasoned salesman. A small smile crept across Tyler's face. I made $87 that summer, and spent it all on that video game console the next day, I added. The smile faded. Is that what this is about? You think I'm still that impulsive kid? I motioned toward the dining room table where I'd laid out several folders. Let's sit down. I have a proposal for you. Tyler's eyebrows rose, but he followed me to the table, without comment. I've been thinking about what you said, about taking risks and building something of your own, I began. There's merit in that. When I was your age, I played it safe, took the secure job at Edison Electric, and stayed there for 43 years. And you did well, Tyler pointed out. That's not nothing. I did well enough, I agreed. But I also had opportunities I didn't take. Chances to join startups or start my own consulting firm. I always choose security over potential. Tyler leaned forward. Exactly. That's all I'm asking for. A chance at the potential. I opened the first folder and slid it toward him. Inside was a bank statement showing an account in the Cayman Islands with a balance of $200,000. Tyler's eyes widened. Grandpa, what is this? 5 years ago, after your grandmother died, I set up this account as an emergency fund. Only my lawyer knows about it. Offshore banking? Tyler looked up with newfound respect. That's unexpected. It's fully legal and properly reported on my taxes, I clarified. But it's separate from my main retirement funds, completely insulated from market fluctuations or unexpected expenses. Tyler's gaze returned to the statement, his fingers tracing the numbers. So you do have the money. You could invest and build better. I'm willing to invest in you, Tyler, but not without conditions. His expression shifted from excitement to wariness. What kind of conditions? I opened the second folder, which contained a document my lawyer had prepared that morning after an urgent call. This is a structured investment agreement. Instead of giving you $300,000 all at once, I'll release the funds in stages, tied to specific business milestones. Tyler frowned. Like what? The first release would be $50,000, contingent on you completing a proper business plan reviewed by a legitimate business consultant, someone I choose. The next $75,000 comes when you secure your first paying client. Another $75,000 when you hire your third employee. The final $100,000 when you can demonstrate 6 months of positive cash flow. Tyler's frown deepened. That's not how startup funding works. I need the capital up front to build the product and get those clients in the first place. Then perhaps, your business model needs refinement, I suggested. If you can't get started with $50,000, how can I trust you with $300,000? Tyler pushed back from the table. This isn't about trust. It's about the practical realities of building a technology company. It's absolutely about trust, I countered. And about your readiness to run a business of this scale. A true entrepreneur adapts to the resources available. Tyler stood up, pacing the dining room. So you're offering me the money but with strings that make it impossible to succeed? No. I'm offering you a chance to prove yourself at each stage before advancing to the next. It protects both of us. It protects you, you mean? Tyler's voice had an edge now. You still don't believe I can do this? I stayed seated, keeping my voice level. If you're as confident in this business as you claim, these milestones should be achievable. They're not unreasonable. Tyler stopped. pacing, and looked down at me. Why can't you just believe in me like a normal grandfather? Why does everything have to be a test? The question stung, but I held firm. Because normal grandfathers don't have $300,000 to give. Because I've worked too hard for too long to watch that money disappear into another abandoned project. That's what this is really about, isn't it? My track record. Tyler made air quotes with his fingers. I'm never going to escape my past with this family. Your past doesn't define you, but it does inform how others interact with you, I said. If you want to be treated like a serious businessman, act like one. Accept the staged funding and prove you can execute. Tyler braced, his hands on the table, leaning toward me. And what if I refuse? What if I find investors who actually believe in my vision? Then I'll applaud your initiative and watch your success with pride, I said sincerely. But those investors will likely impose conditions far more stringent than mine. Tyler straightened up, his expression hardening. I need to think about this. Of course, it's a business decision. Take the time you need. He nodded stiffly, then walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back. You know what hurts the most? You're treating me like a stranger instead of family. After he left, I sat at the table for a long time, wondering if I'd made another mistake. Was I being too cautious, too controlling? Or was this the right balance of support and prudence? Picked up my phone and called Melissa. How did it go? She asked immediately. I explained the offshore account and my staged investment proposal. Dad, I had no idea you had that account, she said, surprised. It was meant for emergencies only. I suppose this qualifies, in a way. And what did Tyler say? He wasn't thrilled about the conditions. He's thinking it over. Melissa sighed. Because he wants the money with no accountability. Or because he genuinely believes he needs the full amount up front, I suggested. Not everything is the worst-case scenario with him. I hope you're right. Her voice softened. For what it's worth, I think your proposal is more than fair. It gives him a chance without risking everything. After we hung up, I went to my workshop to clear my head. The grandfather clock I'd been restoring was nearly complete, just needing a few adjustments to its pendulum to keep proper time. As I worked on the delicate mechanism, I reflected on how similar it was to the situation with Tyler. Small, precise adjustments that could determine whether something ran smoothly or failed entirely. 3 days passed without a word from Tyler. I gave him space, resisting the urge to call or text. On the 4th day, as I was returning from grocery shopping, I found him sitting on my front porch steps. I've been thinking about your offer, he said as I approached, not bothering with a greeting. Let's talk inside, I suggested, juggling paper bags of groceries. Tyler took one of the bags and followed me into the kitchen. We unpacked the groceries in silence, an oddly domestic moment amid our business negotiation. When everything was put away, Tyler leaned against the counter. I've done some research and talked to a few people in the startup world. And? I prompted. When he didn't continue. And staged funding is actually pretty standard, he admitted reluctantly. Even venture capitalists use milestones to minimize risk. I nodded, waiting for him to continue. So I'm willing to accept your terms, with a few modifications. What modifications? I asked, unsurprised that he'd want to negotiate. First, I need the initial amount to be $75,000, not $50,000. The product development costs are fixed, and I can't get below that number. I considered this. I can agree to that if you match it with $25,000 of your own money. Tyler blinked. My own money? Grandpa, if I had that kind of cash, I wouldn't be asking you for help. You have assets. Your car is worth at least that much. You have expensive electronics. You could get a side job and save for 6 months. You expect me to sell my car? I expect you to have skin in the game, I said firmly. Every successful entrepreneur I've known put their own resources at risk before asking others to invest. Tyler frowned but didn't immediately reject the idea. What else would you need to see from me? A real business plan, detailed financial projections, market analysis, competitor research, everything a professional investor would require. I can do that, Tyler said, with more confidence than I expected. I've already started working on it. Good. And one more thing. I paused to ensure I had his full attention. I want monthly updates, detailed reports on progress, spending, and upcoming milestones. Tyler nodded slowly. Accountability, I understand. It's not just about accountability, I clarified. It's about developing good business habits. The discipline of regular reporting will serve you well with future investors. Makes sense, Tyler conceded. To my surprise, he extended his hand. So, do we have a deal? I shook his hand, feeling a glimmer of hope. We have the framework of a deal. We'll need to formalize everything with proper documentation. Of course. I'll have my lawyer. We'll use my lawyer, I interrupted. Neutral third party. Tyler hesitated, then nodded. Fair enough. As he turned to leave, I felt compelled to add one thing. Tyler, I want you to know that this isn't just about protecting my money. It's about helping you build something sustainable. He paused at the door. I know, Grandpa. And I'm going to prove to you that this wasn't a mistake. After Tyler left, I felt a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. Had I done the right thing? Only time would tell. The next few weeks passed in a flurry of activity. True to his word, Tyler threw himself into developing a proper business plan. He scheduled meetings with my lawyer to draft the investment agreement. He even sold his BMW and purchased a modest used Honda, banking the difference toward his contribution. I found myself impressed by his dedication, though I remained cautiously optimistic. We'd been here before, initial enthusiasm followed by gradually waning interest. 6 weeks after our agreement, we met at my lawyer's office to sign the final documents. Maria Reynolds had been my attorney for 15 years and knew my financial situation intimately. Mr. Mitchell, are you sure about this investment? She asked when Tyler stepped out to take a phone call. As sure as I can be, I replied. The staging protects me, and it gives Tyler a structured path forward. Maria nodded. The terms are certainly favorable to you. If the business fails after the first stage, your exposure is limited to $75,000. And if it succeeds, we both win. Tyler returned, ending our conversation. We spent the next hour reviewing and signing documents. When we finished, Tyler had a certified check for $75,000 and a set of legally binding obligations. Congratulations, Maria said as we prepared to leave. You're officially business partners. Tyler grinned. Thanks, Grandpa. You won't regret this. I already don't, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. Over the next 3 months, I watched as Tyler threw himself into building Build Better. He rented a small office space and a shared workspace downtown. He hired a software developer, the former Build Now employee he'd mentioned, and brought on a part-time operations manager who had experience in the construction industry. Every month, like clockwork, Tyler sent me detailed reports. Development, progress, marketing efforts, client outreach, and financial statements. Some numbers were concerning. They were burning through the initial funding faster than projected, but Tyler was transparent about the challenges and adjustments. 4 months in, Tyler called me with excitement in his voice. Grandpa, we got our first client! Martinez Construction signed a $48,000 annual contract. That's fantastic, Tyler. Tell me about it. They're a mid-sized commercial builder. I've been courting them for weeks. The owner came by for a demo yesterday, and we closed the deal this morning. His enthusiasm was contagious. That's a significant milestone. Does this trigger the next funding stage? Not yet, Tyler said, surprising me with his restraint. The agreement says the client has to be active for 30 days. I want to make sure they're satisfied before we claim success. This measured approach was new for Tyler, and it impressed me more than the sale itself. Smart thinking. Keep me posted on how it goes. When the 30 days passed and Martinez Construction remained a satisfied client, I transferred the next $75,000 as agreed. Tyler used the funds to hire 2 more developers and a dedicated sales representative, a woman who had previously worked at a larger construction software company and brought with her a Rolodex of potential clients. 6 months into the venture, Build Better had 5 employees and 3 paying clients. They weren't profitable yet, but they were meeting their revised projections. Tyler had matured visibly under the pressure and responsibility of running a real business. One evening, Tyler invited me to dinner at a modest Italian restaurant downtown. When I arrived, I found him already seated, reviewing documents on his tablet. "Sorry," he said, putting the device away as I sat down. "Just finalizing tomorrow's presentation for a potential client. No need to apologize. It's good to see you. Focused." Tyler studied me for a moment. "You know, I was angry with you at first. The conditions, the staged funding, it felt like you were setting me up to fail. And now?" I asked. "Now I see it was the opposite." Tyler leaned forward. "You were setting me up to succeed. The constraints forced me to be disciplined, to prioritize, to really think through every decision." I nodded, unexpectedly moved by his insight. "I have something to show you," Tyler continued, pulling up a spreadsheet on his tablet. "These are our projections for next year. Based on our current pipeline, we should be cash flow positive in 4 months." I reviewed the numbers, impressed by their detail and conservative assumptions. "This is solid work. And this," Tyler swiped, "to a new document, is my plan to repay your investment. Once we're profitable, I want to start returning capital to you with interest." "The agreement doesn't require repayment," I reminded him. "You're giving me equity." "I know, but I want to do this." Tyler's expression was earnest. "You took a chance on me when you had every reason not to. I want to show you that your faith wasn't misplaced." I reached across the table and squeezed his shoulder. "Tyler, the greatest return on my investment isn't financial. It's seeing you grow into the businessman you're becoming." He smiled, a genuine smile without the artificial charm he'd often relied on in the past. "We're not there yet, but we're on the right track, and I couldn't have done it without you." As we enjoyed our meal, discussing business strategies and market opportunities, I reflected on how far we'd come. My offshore account, originally created out of fear and self-protection, had become a bridge between generations, a tool for teaching and growth. The final installment of the investment would come due when Build Better demonstrated 6 months of positive cash flow. At our current trajectory, that would happen early next year. But even if the business ultimately failed, I knew the money had been well spent. Some lessons can only be learned through experience, through the pressure of real responsibility and the discipline of accountability. Tyler had one more surprise for me as we finished our tiramisu. "I've been thinking about the company name," he said. "Build Better seems fine to me. It's okay, but it doesn't really capture what we're trying to do." Tyler took a deep breath. "What do you think about Mitchell Technologies instead?" "You want to use our family name?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "This company wouldn't exist without you. Not just the money, but the guidance, the structure, the accountability. It feels right to acknowledge that." I felt a lump forming in my throat. "I'd be honored, Tyler." As we left the restaurant, walking together toward the parking lot, Tyler said something that will stay with me forever. "You know, Grandpa, I came to you asking for money to build a business. But what you gave me was something much more valuable. You taught me how to be someone worth investing in." My offshore account had certainly had other plans than I'd originally intended. Instead of just protecting my financial security, it had become the foundation for something far more meaningful: my grandson's growth and our strengthened relationship. Sometimes the best investments have returns you never anticipated. 8 months after our initial agreement, Mitchell Technologies, still operating under the Build Better name until the rebranding was complete, hit an unexpected roadblock. I was in my workshop early on a Tuesday morning when my phone rang. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. "Grandpa, do you have a minute?" "We need to talk," Tyler said, his voice tight with stress. "Of course. What's happening?" "Not over the phone. Can I come by around noon?" "I'll be here." When Tyler arrived, the confident entrepreneur I'd grown accustomed to had been replaced by someone who looked like he hadn't slept in days. His usually neat hair was disheveled, and he'd missed a spot. Shaving. "Coffee?" I offered. "Something stronger would be better, but coffee will do," he said with a weak attempt at humor. We settled in the living room, and Tyler pulled out his tablet, hands slightly unsteady. "Build Now is suing us for intellectual property theft and breach of contract," he said without preamble. The statement hit me like a physical blow. "What? On what grounds?" Tyler swiped through several documents, then handed me the tablet. On screen was a formal legal complaint filed in federal court. They claim I took proprietary information when I left: client lists, software architecture, plans, even marketing strategies. Tyler ran a hand through his hair. "They're seeking an injunction to shut us down immediately and damages of $2 million. I scanned the document, my stomach sinking. The allegations were detailed and specific, naming dates, files, and even referencing specific emails Tyler had supposedly sent to himself before resigning. "Is there any truth to this?" I asked as gently as I could. Tyler's eyes flashed with anger. "Of course not. I mean..." He hesitated. "I did email myself some documents, but they were my own work product. Sales presentations I'd created, contact information for clients I'd personally brought in. Nothing proprietary." "What does your lawyer say?" "That's why I'm here." Tyler looked down at his hands. "We need specialized legal counsel for this. Our current lawyer handles basic business matters, not intellectual property litigation." He took a deep breath. "The retainer alone is $50,000. I sat back, understanding dawn. "And you're here because you need money for legal defense." "We have about $30,000 in the bank," Tyler explained. "But most of that is already allocated for payroll and expenses for the next month. This lawsuit..." He shook his head. "It could bankrupt us before we even get to court." "Couldn't this trigger the next round of funding?" I asked. "You have paying clients, a growing team. We're still 2 months away from demonstrating sustained, positive cash flow," Tyler reminded me. "And the way the agreement is structured, legal problems like this might actually disqualify us from receiving the final installment." I stood up and walked to the window thinking. The lawsuit could be a death blow to Mitchell Technologies before it truly got off the ground. All the progress Tyler had made, all his growth and maturity, might be for nothing if Build Now succeeded in their legal attack. Why now? I wondered aloud. Why would they wait 8 months to file this lawsuit? Tyler joined me at the window. "Because we're becoming a legitimate threat. We just landed Westridge Developers. They're one of Build Now's biggest clients. Or they were, until last week. So this is about eliminating competition." "Exactly." Tyler's voice hardened. "They ignored us when we were small, but now that we're gaining traction, they want to crush us." I turned to face my grandson. "What happens if you lose the lawsuit?" "Best case? We pay damages we can't afford and go out of business. Worst case? I could be personally liable, which means bankruptcy. Potentially even criminal charges if they convince a court I stole trade secrets." The severity of the situation was clear. This wasn't just about the business anymore. Tyler's entire future was at stake. "How strong is their case?" I asked. "It depends on what evidence they have. If they can show I took actual proprietary information, we're in trouble. But I didn't, Grandpa. I swear. I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. What I saw instead was fear. Not the fear of someone caught in a lie, but the fear of someone facing an adversary with vastly more resources. I need time to think about this, I said finally. Tyler nodded, his shoulders slumping. I understand. We don't have much time. The preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. After Tyler left, I called Maria Reynolds. As my lawyer, she had a duty of confidentiality, even in matters related to the investment in Tyler's company. This is a serious situation, she said after I explained. If Build Now can prove their claims, it could invalidate your entire investment agreement. And if they can't, then it's likely a bullying tactic. Large companies often use litigation to squash smaller competitors. Knowing the legal costs alone can be devastating. Is there any way to protect the money I've already invested? Not really, Maria said. You're a stakeholder in the company. If it goes down, your investment goes with it. What would you advise? From a purely financial perspective, walk away. Don't throw good money after bad. Her frank assessment wasn't surprising, but it still stung. And from a less purely financial perspective? I pressed. Maria sighed. Harold, you're not just an investor. You're Tyler's grandfather. I can't tell you what weight to give that fact. But I can tell you that without adequate legal defense, his company doesn't stand a chance. After hanging up, I sat at my desk, reviewing the documents Tyler had sent me. The lawsuit seemed comprehensive, with specific allegations about proprietary algorithms, client data, and marketing strategies. Build Now clearly hadn't filed this on a whim. They were coming with everything they had. I reached for my phone and called Melissa. Dad, is everything okay? She answered on the second ring. Has Tyler told you about the lawsuit? Her silence was enough. So he has, I said. He mentioned it briefly, Melissa admitted. He seemed scared. He should be. This could ruin him financially, possibly worse. And he asked you for money for lawyers. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes, $50,000. Melissa was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I'm trying to understand the situation better before making a decision. Dad? Melissa's voice softened. Whatever you decide, I support you. Even if... She trailed off. Even if what? Even if you decide to help him again. I know I was against the initial investment, but I've seen how Tyler has changed. He's actually following through for once. Her words surprised me. Melissa had always been the voice of caution when it came to enabling Tyler's ventures. I need to know one thing, I said. Do you believe Tyler is telling the truth about not stealing proprietary information? Melissa was silent for so long, I thought we might have lost the connection. Finally, she spoke. I do. Tyler has many flaws, but he's not a thief. If he says he didn't take anything he shouldn't have, I believe him. Her vote of confidence settled something in my mind. Thank you, Melissa. That helps. The next day, I did something I'd never done before. I contacted one of my former colleagues who had moved into legal consulting for technology companies. Walter Chen had spent 20 years as patent counsel for Edison Electric before starting his own practice. Harold, it's been, 3 years? How's retirement treating you? Walter's voice boomed through the phone. Generally well, though I've run into a situation I could use your expertise on. I explained the lawsuit against Mitchell Technologies, without mentioning my relationship to Tyler. Walter listened patiently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Based on what you've told me, this sounds like a classic anti-competitive suit, Walter said when I finished. Big fish trying to eat the little fish before it grows too large. So there's no merit to it? I didn't say that. These suits typically have some kernel of truth wrapped in exaggerated claims. Your grandson. I didn't mention he was my grandson, I interrupted, surprised. Walter laughed. Harold, you've talked about Tyler at every company picnic for 20 years. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. Besides, why else would you be calling me about a random startup's legal troubles? I conceded the point with a chuckle. Fair enough. So what would you advise? Get good counsel immediately, not just any business lawyer, someone who specializes in technology IP litigation, and prepare for a long fight. These cases rarely resolve quickly. And the chances of winning? Impossible to say without seeing all the evidence, but if Tyler truly didn't take anything proprietary, his chances are good, especially if the emails they're referencing were genuinely his own work product. I thanked Walter for his insights and promised to have dinner with him soon. After hanging up, I spent the afternoon researching IP litigation attorneys in Portland. By evening, I had compiled a list of 5 highly rated lawyers who specialized in exactly the kind of case Tyler was facing. I was about to call Tyler when my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find him standing there, looking even more haggard than before. They froze our bank accounts, he said without greeting. Build now convinced a judge to issue a temporary restraining order pending the preliminary hearing. Come in, I said, stepping aside. When did this happen? 2 hours ago. I just came from an emergency meeting with our lawyer. Tyler collapsed onto the couch. We can't pay our employees, our rent, nothing. It's a kill shot, Grandpa. They're trying to strangle us before we even get to defend ourselves. The tactic was as brutal as it was effective. Without access to funds, Mitchell Technologies couldn't operate, couldn't retain employees, couldn't even pay for legal representation. What about personal funds? Yours or the other partners? Tyler shook his head. We've all put everything we have into the company. There's nothing left. I walked to my desk and pulled out the folder containing the offshore account documents. The balance now stood at $125,000, the remainder after the 2 installments I'd already invested in Mitchell Technologies. Tyler, I've made a decision. I'm going to help with the legal fees. His head snapped up, eyes wide with surprise and hope. You are? But what about the agreement, the milestones? This is outside the scope of our original agreement. This is about fighting injustice, not just building a business. I handed him the folder. I'll transfer $60,000 to your personal account tomorrow. Use it to retain the best IP litigation attorney you can find. Tyler stared at the papers, then back at me. Grandpa, I don't know what to say. Say you'll fight like hell and prove them wrong. I will. I promise. He stood up, suddenly animated with new energy. This isn't just about saving the company anymore. It's about standing up to bullies who think they can crush anyone who challenges them. The fire in his eyes reminded me of Linda when she'd faced down her cancer diagnosis, defiant in the face of overwhelming odds. It was a Mitchell family trait, that stubborn resilience. I have a list of attorneys you should contact, I said, handing him the names I'd researched. Start with Elaine Watkins. She's handled 3 similar cases and won them all. Tyler took the list, scanning the names. How did you put this together so quickly? I may be retired, but I still have connections. I smiled. Now go home and get some sleep. You have a battle to prepare for. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal consultations, document reviews, and strategy sessions. Tyler managed to retain Elaine Watkins, who immediately filed a motion to release the frozen accounts, arguing that BuildNow's restraining order was overly broad and would cause irreparable harm to an innocent business. 3 days before the preliminary hearing, Elaine called Tyler with unexpected news. BuildNow wanted to meet to discuss a potential settlement. They wouldn't be offering to settle if they had a slam-dunk case, Elaine explained when Tyler, myself, and 2 of his partners gathered in her office. My guess is they've reviewed their evidence and realized it's not as strong as they initially thought. What kind of settlement are they proposing? I asked. They haven't specified terms yet. That's what the meeting is for. Elaine leaned forward. But before we go in, we need to decide our bottom line. What's the minimum acceptable outcome for Mitchell Technologies? Tyler looked at his partners, then at me. We need the restraining order lifted immediately, and we need to be able to continue operating without interference. They're going to want concessions, Elaine warned. Perhaps limitations on which clients you can approach, or restrictions on certain features of your software. We can be flexible on some features, one of Tyler's partners, a developer named Ryan, suggested. There are multiple ways to solve the same problems. But not on clients, Tyler said firmly. The whole point of our business is offering better service to their customers. If we can't compete for the same market, we might as well shut down now. Elaine nodded, making notes. What about financial penalties? They initially asked for $2 million in damages. What's your ceiling for a settlement payment? Tyler looked at me uncertainly. This was outside the scope of my additional funding. We need to be realistic, I said. What can the company afford without crippling its growth? After some discussion, we settled on a maximum of $100,000, payable over 2 years, contingent on the company reaching certain revenue thresholds. The settlement meeting took place in a neutral conference room downtown. Build Now sent their general counsel, head of product development, and outside litigation attorney. Our side consisted of Tyler, Elaine, and myself, present as a major investor. Build Now's opening position was predictably aggressive. They wanted $500,000 in damages, an agreement not to hire any Build Now employees for 5 years, and restrictions on approaching their current clients. That's a non-starter, Elaine responded calmly. My clients have done nothing wrong, and we're prepared to prove that in court. Your restraining order has already caused significant damage to their business, damage that we intend to seek compensation for if this goes to trial. The negotiations went back and forth for 3 hours. Build Now gradually reduced their demands as Elaine systematically challenged the evidence behind their claims. By mid-afternoon, we were approaching a potential agreement. Here's our final offer, Build Now's attorney said. A settlement payment of $150,000, no restrictions on clients, but a 2-year moratorium on hiring Build Now employees. And you agree to review your software to ensure there's no code similarity to our proprietary algorithms. Elaine glanced at Tyler, who looked at me. The amount was higher than our target, but the other terms were reasonable. We'll agree to those terms with one modification, I said. The settlement payment will be $100,000, payable in quarterly installments over 2 years. Build Now's team huddled in whispered conversation. Their counsel finally nodded. Accepted, with the addition that the first installment of $2,500 is due within 30 days of signing. We had a deal. The lawsuit that had threatened to destroy everything Tyler had built was ending not with a devastating court battle, but with a negotiated compromise. As we left the building, Tyler was quiet, processing the outcome. Is it wrong that I feel both relieved and disappointed? He finally asked. Not at all, I assured him. You were ready to fight, but a battle avoided is often a battle won. We still have to pay them $100,000 for basically nothing. Consider it the cost of education, I suggested. An expensive lesson in how business sometimes works in the real world. The important thing is that Mitchell Technologies survives. A week later, the settlement was formally signed, the restraining order lifted, and Mitchell Technologies' bank accounts unfrozen. The company had lost 2 employees during the crisis, but managed to retain its core team. The following Sunday, Tyler invited Melissa and me to dinner at his apartment, a modest 1-bedroom he'd downgraded to when he sold his BMW. He cooked for us, a skill I hadn't known he possessed. I hope you saved room for dessert, Tyler said as he cleared our dinner plates. I made Grandma's apple pie. Well, I tried to. It doesn't look quite right, but it tastes pretty close. When did you learn to cook? Melissa asked, clearly as surprised as I was. During the lawsuit, Tyler said. I couldn't sleep most nights, so I watched cooking videos online. Turns out following a recipe isn't that different from following code. Logic. He disappeared into the kitchen, returning with 3 plates of slightly lopsided but aromatic apple pie. "Before we eat, I want to make a toast," Tyler said, raising his water glass. "To Grandpa, who taught me that the true measure of success isn't how you handle victories, but how you respond to setbacks." Melissa raised her glass. "To Dad, who somehow knew exactly what Tyler needed, even when neither of us did." I felt a lump in my throat as I raised my own glass. "To family, imperfect, challenging, but worth fighting for." As we enjoyed the pie, which indeed tasted remarkably like Linda's recipe, I reflected on the journey we'd taken. My offshore account, created to protect myself from uncertainty, had instead become a tool for growth, learning, and ultimately, strengthening the bonds that matter most. Mitchell Technologies would face more challenges, of course. All businesses do. But watching Tyler discuss future plans with confidence and humility, I knew that whatever happened, the investment had already paid dividends no bank could match. Sometimes the greatest returns come not from protecting what we have, but from risking it on those we love, not blindly or without conditions, but thoughtfully, with guidance and accountability. My offshore account had indeed had other plans than I'd ever imagined when I created it, and I couldn't be more grateful for that fact. 18 months after the settlement with Build Now, Mitchell Technologies had not only survived, but thrived. The company had grown to 15 employees, secured a larger office space in downtown Portland, and developed a loyal client base of 23 construction firms across 3 states. I was having breakfast one morning when my phone rang. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. "Morning, Grandpa," he said when I answered. There was an unfamiliar tension in his voice. "What's going on, Tyler? You're calling earlier than usual." "I just got off a conference call that I think you should know about." He paused. "Steelcore Industries wants to acquire Mitchell Technologies." I nearly dropped my coffee mug. "Acquire? You mean buy the company?" "Yes. Their initial offer is $12 million. The amount was staggering. Mitchell Technologies had been valued at just under $3 million during their last funding round 6 months earlier. "That's substantial," I managed to say. "It's more than substantial. It's life-changing." Tyler's voice was a mix of excitement and uncertainty. "But I wanted to talk to you before responding. You're not just an investor. You're the reason this company exists." "What are you thinking?" I asked. Honestly, I'm torn. On one hand, this is the kind of exit most startups dream about. The return on investment would be incredible for everyone involved. And on the other hand, Tyler's sigh carried through the phone. "We're just getting started. Our new project management module is launching next month. We're expanding to the East Coast this quarter. It feels like we'd be selling just as we're hitting our stride. Have you discussed this with your partners?" "Not yet. I wanted your input first. This affects you significantly too, you know. Your stake would be worth over $3 million. The figure gave me pause. My total investment had been $210,000. The original $150,000 plus the $60,000 for legal defense. A return of over $3 million would be extraordinary by any standard. "Why don't you come over for dinner tonight?" I suggested. "This isn't a decision to make over the phone." "I'll bring the files with all the details," Tyler agreed. "Around 7? That evening, Tyler arrived with a thick folder and a bottle of scotch. "I thought we might need this," he said, placing the bottle on the table. Over dinner, Tyler laid out the acquisition proposal. Steelcore Industries was a major player in construction equipment manufacturing, looking to expand into software solutions for their clients. "They want to integrate our platform into their existing services," Tyler explained, showing me the offer letter. "Their clients are already buying or leasing equipment from them. Now they could offer digital project management as part of the package." "Does that mean the Mitchell Technologies brand would disappear?" I asked. "Not immediately. According to their proposal, they'd maintain our brand and operations as a subsidiary for at least 2 years. Tyler flipped to another page. But after that, yes, it would likely be absorbed into SteelCore's ecosystem. I studied the financial terms. The offer was indeed generous, $12 million, with $10 million in cash at closing and $2 million in SteelCore stock that would vest over 3 years. Tyler and his founding partners would be offered executive positions within SteelCore's digital division. What about your employees? I asked. That's one of my concerns, Tyler admitted. They're guaranteeing positions for at least 12 months. But after that, there could be restructuring, corporate speak for potential layoffs. I poured a small measure of scotch for each of us. Tell me honestly, is Mitchell Technologies worth more than $12 million? Tyler considered the question. In terms of current revenue and assets? No, we're profitable, but our valuation is based more on growth potential than current worth. And do you believe in that potential? I do. Tyler's eyes lit up with the same passion I'd seen when he first pitched his business idea. Our client satisfaction rates are exceptional. We're developing features that no one else in the market offers. In 3 years, we could be worth $30 million or more. Or you could face new competition, technology changes, economic downturns. I countered. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing worth doing ever is, Tyler said with a small smile. You taught me that. I raised my glass. So I did. We sat in companionable silence, each lost in our thoughts. Finally, Tyler spoke again. What would you do, Grandpa, if you were in my position? I considered my answer carefully. When I was your age, I was offered a chance to leave Edison Electric and join a startup founded by colleagues. They wanted my expertise in grid systems. You never told me that, Tyler said, surprised. What happened? I declined, opted for security over potential. The company eventually went public and those colleagues became millionaires. I took a sip of scotch, feeling the familiar warmth. I don't regret my choice. I had a good career, provided well for my family. But I sometimes wonder about the path not taken. So you think I should reject the offer? I didn't say that. Our situations are different. You've already taken the entrepreneurial leap I never did. The question now is whether you've accomplished what you set out to do with Mitchell Technologies. Tyler looked thoughtful. When I started, it was about proving I could succeed. To myself, to Mom, to you. Now it's about something bigger. We're changing how construction companies manage their projects, saving them time and money, making work safer. And does selling to SteelCore advance or hinder that mission? It gives us resources and reach we couldn't achieve on our own for years, Tyler acknowledged. But we'd lose independence, the ability to make quick decisions, to pivot when needed. I nodded. These are the trade-offs every successful business eventually faces. There's no perfect answer. Tyler gathered the documents back into the folder. I need to present this to my partners tomorrow. They deserve to have input before I make any decisions. Of course. Whatever you decide, I'm proud of what you've built, Tyler. He stood to leave, then paused. You know, when I first came to you asking for money, I never imagined we'd end up here, making a $12 million decision together. Life has a way of surprising us, I said, walking him to the door. Especially family. The next day, Tyler convened a meeting with his 4 founding partners to discuss the SteelCore offer. He called me afterward, sounding drained. It was intense, he reported. Ryan and Aisha want to sell. They see it as a huge win. Marcus and Danielle are hesitant, like me. So you're at an impasse? I asked. Not exactly. We agreed to counter SteelCore's offer with some additional conditions. If they accept, we'll move forward with the sale. What conditions? First, guaranteed employment for all current staff for at least 24 months, not 12. Second, more autonomy for our division within their corporate structure. And third, an earnout provision that could increase the acquisition price if we hit certain performance targets. Smart, I said. That addresses your main concerns while still embracing the opportunity. There's one more thing, Tyler added. We want you to be involved in the negotiations, not just as a shareholder, but as an advisor. Your experience would be valuable. The request caught me off guard. Tyler, I appreciate the thought, but I've been retired for years. Corporate acquisitions aren't my expertise. Maybe not specifically, but you understand people, negotiations, and long-term thinking better than any of us. Will you at least consider it? I agreed to think about it. That evening, I called Melissa to share the news. $12 million? She repeated, incredulous. For Tyler's company? The one you invested in less than 2 years ago? The very same, I confirmed. I don't even know what to say. Congratulations seems inadequate. Nothing's finalized yet, I cautioned. And Tyler's conflicted about selling. Of course he is, Melissa said with unexpected understanding. This company is his baby. He's put everything into it. You sound proud of him, I observed. I am, she admitted. Even if the acquisition falls through, the fact that someone values his work at $12 million is validation that he's created something worthwhile. They want me to be part of the negotiation team, I told her. Are you going to do it? I hadn't decided until that moment, but speaking with Melissa clarified my thoughts. Yes, I think I will. One last project before I fully embrace retirement. The negotiations with Steelcore Industries lasted 6 weeks. Their team included corporate, attorneys, financial analysts, and technology specialists, all focused on getting the best deal for their company. Our side consisted of Tyler, his partners, their lawyer, and me. In those intense sessions, I watched Tyler transform from the impulsive grandson who had once demanded my retirement savings into a poised, strategic business leader. He was tough but fair, advocating for his employees and vision while remaining open to compromise. I found myself contributing not just advice whispered during breaks, but active input during discussions, drawing on 4 decades of corporate experience. Steelcore eventually accepted most of our counter conditions, increasing the guaranteed employment period to 24 months and agreeing to the earnout provision that could add up to $3 million to the acquisition price. If certain milestones were met, they balked at the autonomy demands, but we reached a compromise. Mitchell Technologies would operate as a distinct division for 3 years, with Tyler as division president reporting directly to Steelcore's chief technology officer. The final offer stood at $13 million, 10 in cash, 3 in stock, plus the potential $3 million earnout. It was more than any of us had expected. The night before the contracts were to be signed, Tyler called and asked if he could stop by. When he arrived, I could tell something was weighing on him. Having second thoughts? I asked as we settled. In the living room. Not exactly second thoughts, more like... He struggled to find the words. I guess I'm worried about what comes next. What do you mean? For nearly 2 years, Mitchell Technologies has been my entire life. Every morning I woke up with a clear purpose. Build this company, solve these problems, lead this team. Tyler leaned forward, elbows on knees. After tomorrow, everything changes. I'll still have the title, but I'll be part of someone else's vision. Change is rarely easy, even positive change, I acknowledged. It's not just that. Tyler met my eyes. Part of me feels like I'm selling out, taking the money instead of seeing through what we started. I considered this. Do you remember why you started the company? To prove I could succeed where I'd failed before, to build something valuable. And, haven't you done that? Steelcore isn't offering $13 million out of charity. They recognize the value you've created. Tyler nodded slowly. I guess I'm also worried about working within their corporate structure. I've gotten used to being the final decision maker. That's a legitimate concern, I acknowledged. But consider this perspective. You've mastered one challenge, building a successful startup from nothing. Now you have the opportunity to master a new one, leading a division within a larger organization, influencing its scale. I hadn't thought of it that way, Tyler said. Every career has phases. This isn't an ending, it's a transition. And remember, nothing is permanent. After your 3 years at Steel Corps, you'll still be young enough to start something new if that's what you want. Tyler's expression lightened. With a lot more experience and capital. Exactly. We talked late into the evening, discussing not just the acquisition but broader life questions. How success is measured, what creates fulfillment, balancing ambition with contentment. It was the kind of deep conversation I'd always hoped to have with my grandson but hadn't thought possible before our business partnership. As he was leaving, Tyler embraced me, something he hadn't done since he was a teenager. Thank you, Grandpa, not just for the investment, but for believing in me. When I hadn't earned it yet. That's what family does at its best, I said, sees the potential before it's fully realized. The next day, in a conference room overlooking the Portland skyline, the final papers were signed. Mitchell Technologies officially became a division of Steel Corps Industries. Champagne was poured, handshakes exchanged, and publicity photos taken for press releases. Afterward, Tyler suggested we celebrate properly. He reserved a private dining room at Portland's finest restaurant and invited Melissa, his partners, and their spouses, and key employees who had been with the company from the beginning. During dinner, Tyler stood to offer a toast. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass, and to the person who made this possible. He turned to me. My grandfather, who taught me that success isn't about how much money you make or how quickly you achieve it. It's about integrity, persistence, and doing right by the people who trust you. Melissa, seated beside me, squeezed my hand under the table. He finally got it, she whispered. 2 months after the acquisition, I received the wire transfer for my portion of the proceeds, $3.2 million. The amount was staggering to someone who had spent a lifetime carefully saving and investing for retirement. I immediately set up a trust for Melissa, ensuring her future security, and established college funds for my 2 younger grandchildren. With the remaining funds, I created the Mitchell Family Foundation, a small charitable organization focused on supporting entrepreneurship education for disadvantaged youth. Tyler agreed to serve on the board, bringing his real-world experience to aspiring business owners. As for the offshore account that had started this journey, I closed it. Its purpose had been fulfilled in ways I could never have anticipated. What began as a safety net for myself had become a launching pad for my grandson's future, and a bridge rebuilding our relationship. 6 months into his new role at Steel Corps, Tyler invited me to tour the expanded Mitchell Technologies offices. The space was impressive, open and modern, with a dedicated team now numbering 23 employees. We just landed our biggest client yet, Tyler told me proudly as he showed me around. A national construction firm with projects in 38 states. It would have taken us years to reach them on our own. So the acquisition is working out well, I asked. Better than I expected, he admitted. There's bureaucracy, sure, but having Steel Corps' resources behind us has accelerated everything, and they've actually kept their promises about autonomy. In the break room, I noticed a framed document on the wall, the original investment agreement. I'd drafted with Tyler, complete with its milestone requirements and staged funding. Why display that? I asked, curious. Tyler smiled. It reminds us where we came from, how a structured approach and accountability helped build this company. I have every new hire read it as part of their orientation. As we stood looking at the document, I reflected on how differently things might have turned out. If I had simply written Tyler a check for $300,000 when he first asked, would Mitchell Technologies exist today? Would Tyler have developed the discipline and resilience that ultimately led to success? It seemed unlikely. You know, Tyler said thoughtfully, that offshore account of yours may have been the best financial decision you ever made. Not because it protected your money, but because it created the conditions for something much more valuable to grow. The company? I asked. No. Tyler turned to face me. Our relationship. Before all this, we were just relatives who saw each other at holidays. Now we're partners, mentors, friends. He was right. My offshore account had indeed had other plans. Plans. Far better than my cautious mind could have envisioned. What began as financial self-protection had transformed into an investment not just in a business, but in a person, in my family, in trust. As I left the Mitchell Technologies offices that day, watching Tyler return to a meeting with confident authority, I felt a profound sense of completion. My retirement savings hadn't been diminished by helping my grandson. They had been multiplied, both financially and in the ways that truly matter. Sometimes the greatest returns come from the investments we're most afraid to make. And sometimes an offshore account has plans of its own, plans that lead exactly where we need to go, even when we don't know it yet. 3 years after the SteelCore acquisition, life had settled into a new normal. I'd fully embraced retirement, dividing my time between woodworking projects, volunteering with the Mitchell Family Foundation, and occasional fishing trips with friends from my Edison Electric days. The foundation had grown beyond my initial expectations, now offering entrepreneurship workshops and small startup grants to promising young business owners from underprivileged backgrounds. Tyler devoted every Friday afternoon to mentoring these aspiring entrepreneurs, sharing both his successes and failures with refreshing candor. On a crisp autumn morning, I was enjoying coffee on my back porch when my phone chimed with a text. From Tyler, "Free for lunch today? Important news to share." We met at Riverview Grill, a waterfront restaurant we'd begun frequenting during the SteelCore negotiations. Tyler arrived precisely on time, a habit he'd developed over the past few years, replacing his former tendency to run perpetually late. "So, what's this important news?" I asked after we'd ordered. Tyler took a deep breath. "My contract with SteelCore is up next month." Already? 3 years went quickly. I studied his expression, trying to gauge his feelings. "Are they offering an extension?" "Yes, quite a generous one, actually. 5 years, substantial salary increase, expanded responsibilities." Tyler fidgeted with his water glass. "But I've decided not to accept it." This surprised me. "You seem to be thriving there. The division has grown significantly under your leadership." "It has been good," Tyler acknowledged. "I've learned more than I could have imagined about scaling operations, managing large teams, and navigating corporate politics. But it's not yours," I finished for him. Tyler nodded. "Exactly. I miss building something from the ground up, making rapid decisions without needing approval from 3 levels of management, taking risks that a publicly traded company simply can't justify to shareholders." "So, what's next? Another startup?" A smile spread across Tyler's face. "Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I've been developing a new concept for the past year. Nights, weekends, whenever I could. Find time? Tell me about it," I said, genuinely curious. "It's called GreenSight." Tyler's eyes lit up with familiar entrepreneurial enthusiasm. Sustainable construction management software specifically designed for eco-friendly building projects. Carbon, footprint tracking, sustainable material sourcing, energy efficiency modeling, all integrated into one platform. "Sounds timely," I remarked. "The construction industry has been slow to adopt green practices." "Exactly. And that's changing rapidly with new regulations and client demands. The problem is most construction software wasn't built with sustainability in mind. It's an afterthought, a bolted-on feature. GreenSight would be sustainability first from the ground up." I could see the passion in Tyler's expression. the same fire that had driven Mitchell Technologies, but tempered now with experience and wisdom. "Have you started development?" I asked. "I have a working prototype and a detailed business plan." Tyler paused. "But I want to be clear about something, Grandpa. I'm not here to ask for money." I raised an eyebrow, surprised. "No?" "No. I've set aside enough from the steel core acquisition to fund initial development and the first year of operations. I've also been talking with some angel investors who specialize in green technology." "Then why are we having this conversation?" I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. "Because your guidance was invaluable last time," Tyler said earnestly. "The structure you created, the milestones, the accountability, they shaped not just the business but how I approach problem solving. I'd like your input again, not as an investor, but as an advisor." The role reversal wasn't lost on me. 3 years ago, I'd insisted on being more than just a source of funds. Now Tyler was proactively seeking my involvement beyond money. "I'd be honored," I told him, "though I'm not sure how much value I can add to a cutting-edge software company." "You understand people and incentives," Tyler countered. "Those fundamentals don't change, even as technology evolves." Over lunch, Tyler outlined his vision for GreenSight in greater detail. He planned to start small, 5 employees, focused, product offering, and grow organically rather than chasing rapid expansion. He had already secured a commitment from 2 former Mitchell Technologies employees who were eager to join his new venture. "What does Melissa think about all this?" I asked as we were finishing our meal. Tyler smiled. "Mom's actually excited this time," she said, and I quote, "At least you're using your own money to lose this time, not your grandfather's." We both laughed. Melissa's cautious pragmatism was a helpful counterweight to Tyler's entrepreneurial optimism, a balance that seemed to work better now that Tyler had proven himself capable of success. "When do you plan to launch?" I asked. "I will give my notice to SteelCore next week. Then I'll take a month off to recharge before diving full-time. We should be incorporated and operational by February." I raised my coffee cup with a small toast. "To new beginnings, again." Tyler clinked his glass against mine. "To apply hard-earned lessons." True to his word, Tyler launched GreenSight Technologies in February. This time, the process was notably different from his Mitchell Technologies days. He operated with a lean startup mindset, carefully tracking every expense, setting clear milestones before advancing to the next stage, and focusing on securing paying customers before expanding features or staff. Served on GreenSight's advisory board alongside 2 industry experts, a former construction executive and a sustainability consultant. We met monthly to review progress and provide guidance, though Tyler rarely needed course correction. The lessons from his first venture had been thoroughly internalized. 6 months after launch, GreenSight secured its first major client, a regional developer specializing in LEED-certified commercial buildings. The contract, worth $120,000 annually, validated both the product and Tyler's vision for sustainability-focused software. Around this time, I received unexpected news from my doctor during a routine checkup. My blood pressure had spiked dangerously. High and additional tests revealed a heart condition requiring immediate attention. I underwent surgery to insert 2 stents, followed by a prescription regimen and strict lifestyle changes. The health scare affected me more deeply than I initially admitted, even to myself. Facing mortality has a way of clarifying priorities and forcing reflection. As I recovered at home, I found myself contemplating legacy, not just financial assets, but knowledge, values, and wisdom that might outlast me. During my second week of recovery, Tyler visited bearing a laptop and a determined expression. "I know you're supposed to be resting," he said as he sat up at my kitchen table, "but I thought you might want to see our latest quarterly numbers." "You know me too well," I admitted, grateful for the mental stimulation after days of daytime. "Television and crossword puzzles." Tyler opened a presentation showing GreenSight's performance metrics, client acquisition costs, and projected growth. The numbers were impressive for a startup less than a year old. "We're ahead of projections by 22%, Tyler explained. "Early adopters are reporting significant time savings in regulatory compliance, which has become our strongest selling point." As he walked me through the data, I noticed something curious. "These reporting formats look familiar," I remarked. Tyler smiled. "They should. They're based on the monthly reports you required from Mitchell Technologies. I've adapted them, but the core structure is what you taught me." The revelation touched me deeply. My influence extended beyond the initial investment or advice. It had shaped how Tyler thought about business accountability and transparency. After reviewing the presentation, Tyler closed his laptop and his expression grew serious. "How are you really doing, Grandpa? Mom says you're downplaying how serious this was." "Doctors fixed me up well enough," I deflected. "Just need to take it easy for a while." Tyler wasn't satisfied with my answer. "Grandpa, you've always been straight with me, even when it was uncomfortable. I'm asking you to extend me the same courtesy." His directness caught me off guard. I sighed, acknowledging the truth. It was a wake-up call. The kind that makes you think about what you're leaving behind. Tyler nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about that too. Not just because of your health scare, but because of GreenSight's mission. We're building something that will hopefully contribute to a more sustainable future. A future I won't fully see, but that matters nonetheless." His perspective surprised me. The Tyler who had demanded my retirement savings years ago had been focused entirely on immediate gain. This Tyler was contemplating impact beyond his own lifetime. "I've been meaning to show you something," I said, making a decision. "Can you help me to my office?" In my home office, I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk and removed a leather-bound journal. "I started this after our first investment agreement," I explained, handing it to Tyler. "It documents the entire journey, my thoughts, concerns, hopes, the lessons I hoped you'd learn along the way." Tyler accepted the journal with visible emotion. "You've been keeping this all along?" "Initially, it was for myself, a way to process my decisions and doubts. Later, I thought it might be useful for you someday, after I'm gone." "May I read it now?" Tyler asked quietly. "That's why I'm showing it to you." Tyler opened the journal, carefully, turning to the first entry dated shortly after his initial request for funding. He read aloud. "Tyler asked for $300,000 today. My first instinct was a flat refusal, but beneath his impulsive exterior, I see glimmers of Linda's determination. Perhaps what he needs isn't a yes or no, but a structured path, a way to prove himself not just to me, but to himself." He looked up, eyes glistening. "You saw something in me worth salvaging even then." "I saw potential that needed the right conditions to flourish," I corrected gently. "Just as you're doing now with the entrepreneurs in our foundation program?" Tyler flipped forward in the journal, scanning entries that chronicled his growth, setbacks, and triumphs through the Mitchell Technologies journey and beyond. The journal represented a metacognitive layer to our shared experience, my observations and reflections on the very process Tyler had been living. Tyler struggled to find words. "This is incredibly valuable, Grandpa. Not just personally, but as a case study in mentorship and business development." An idea began forming in my mind, one that could extend the impact of our story beyond just our family. "What if we use this as the foundation for a book?" I suggested. "Not a dry business text, but a narrative about intergenerational entrepreneurship. Your perspective combined with mine." Tyler's eyes widened. "A book? You mean write it together?" "Why not? You have the entrepreneurial experience. I have the long-view perspective. Between us, we could offer something unique about family business, relationships, structured mentorship, and sustainable growth." The suggestion energized me in a way my doctor's approved activities hadn't. Here was a project that could capture the lessons of our journey while creating something new together. Tyler was equally enthusiastic. We could include case studies from the foundation participants too, showing how these principles apply across different backgrounds and business types. Over the next 6 months, as my health improved and GreenSight continued its steady growth, Tyler and I devoted our Sunday afternoons to developing the book. We called it Staged Growth: Building Businesses and Relationships Through Structured Investment, alternating chapters between my perspective as the investor mentor and Tyler's as the entrepreneur mentee. The writing process itself became a new dimension to our relationship, requiring honest conversations about painful moments, differing perceptions, and lessons each of us had internalized. Some Sundays were challenging as we navigated sensitive topics: Tyler's initial resentment of the milestone requirements, my fears about enabling destructive patterns, our mutual missteps along the way. One rainy afternoon, as we worked through the chapter about the Build Now lawsuit, Tyler confessed something he'd never shared before. "You know, there was a moment during that crisis when I almost gave up," he admitted. "The night before I came to you about the legal fees, I drafted an email to our employees saying we were shutting down." "What stopped you?" I asked. "I kept thinking about our investment agreement, the structure you created, how you'd broken a seemingly impossible goal into manageable milestones." Tyler looked out at the rain streaking my office window. "So I applied the same approach to the lawsuit. Instead of seeing it as one overwhelming problem, I broke it down into specific challenges to address one by one." His words confirmed what I'd hoped but never known for certain, that the methods behind our agreement had value beyond the specific situation. "That belongs in the book," I told him. "It's exactly the kind of real-world application readers need to hear." As the manuscript took shape, we shared drafts with Melissa, whose practical perspective proved invaluable. She suggested adding a chapter about family dynamics, how to separate business discussions from personal relationships, setting boundaries that protect both. 9 months after beginning, we completed the final draft and secured a publisher through contacts in the business community. The book would be released the following spring, with proceeds directed to the Mitchell Family Foundation. GreenSight Technologies, meanwhile, had grown to 15 employees and secured its first international client, an Australian development firm specializing in eco-friendly residential communities. Tyler had maintained his disciplined approach to growth, turning down venture capital offers that would have accelerated expansion at the cost of sustainable development. On the anniversary of my heart surgery, our extended family gathered at Melissa's home for dinner. Tyler arrived with advance copies of our book, hot off the press. "First public copies," he announced, distributing them around the table. "The official release is still 6 weeks away, but these are the real deal." I held the hardcover in my hands, tracing the embossed title and our names listed as co-authors. The cover featured a stylized image of a tree with roots that formed a maze-like foundation, representing both growth and structured paths. "Open it to the dedication," Tyler urged. I turned to the dedication page and read aloud. "To Harold Mitchell, who taught me that true investment isn't measured in dollars but in faith, structure, and patience. And to Linda Mitchell, whose spirit of determination lives on in the family she loved." Tyler. I couldn't continue, too moved by the words. Melissa squeezed my hand. "Mom would be so proud of both of you." As dinner progressed, the conversation turned to the future. Tyler shared updates on GreenSight's expanding client base and his vision for integrating artificial intelligence into sustainability planning. His younger cousins peppered him with questions about entrepreneurship, which he answered with thoughtful candor about both the rewards and sacrifices involved. Watching him, I felt profound gratitude for the journey we'd traveled together. What had begun with a desperate request for my retirement savings had evolved into something neither of us could have predicted: a multi-generational legacy of business wisdom, mentorship, and restored family bonds. My offshore account, created out of caution and self-protection, had ultimately funded not just a successful business venture, but a transformation in my grandson. The structured investment approach we'd pioneered together now served as a model for other entrepreneurs through both the Mitchell Family Foundation and our forthcoming book. As the evening wound down and family members began departing, Tyler lingered behind. We stepped out onto Melissa's back porch, enjoying the quiet evening air. "You know, Grandpa," Tyler said thoughtfully, "when I first asked for that $300,000, I thought money was the most valuable thing you could give me. And now?" I prompted. "Now I understand what you really gave me was a framework for success, not just in business, but in life. The discipline of milestone thinking, the accountability of regular reporting, the balance of support and autonomy." He smiled. "That offshore account of yours really did have other plans." "Better plans than either of us knew," I agreed. We stood, in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge above Portland's skyline. 3 generations of Mitchells, connected not just by blood, but by shared values, experiences, and wisdom, passed down and transformed along the way. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't giving people what they ask for, but what they truly need. And sometimes, an offshore account meant for protection becomes the vehicle for the richest kind of growth, the kind no balance sheet can measure. 3 months into the Mitchell Mentorship Program, an unexpected development shifted the trajectory of both the program and our family legacy. I received a call from Tyler early one Tuesday morning, his voice carrying an unusual edge of excitement. "Grandpa, are you sitting down? You need to hear this." "I'm sitting," I assured him, having learned years ago that Tyler's dramatic announcements required a comfortable position. "What's happened?" "Walter Chen just called me." Walter was my former colleague who had provided legal consultation during the Build Now lawsuit years ago. He's been appointed to lead the National Commission on Entrepreneurial Innovation. "That's impressive," I acknowledged. "But why the urgent call?" "Because he wants the Mitchell Mentorship Program to be the model for a nationwide initiative. The Commission has funding to establish similar programs at universities across all 50 states. The implications were staggering. What had begun as a family's private journey, from conflict over retirement savings to structured business partnership, could potentially impact thousands of entrepreneurs throughout the country. "Walter's flying in tomorrow to discuss details," Tyler continued. "Can you join us at the center? Your perspective would be invaluable." Despite my doctor's frequent admonitions to limit exertion, I agreed immediately. Some opportunities transcend physical limitations. The meeting with Walter took place in the Resilience Conference Room at the Mitchell Innovation Center. At 72, Walter had aged gracefully, his analytical mind as sharp as ever beneath his silver hair. "Harold, it's good to see you," he greeted me warmly. "Still causing productive trouble, I see. Redirecting trouble toward productivity, perhaps," I corrected with a smile. Diana Westbrook joined us, bringing data from the program's first quarter. The initial cohort was showing promising progress. 8 of the 10 entrepreneurs had successfully met their first milestones, with the remaining 2 requesting extensions with clear rationales. "The accountability framework is the key differentiator," Walter observed after reviewing the data. "Most incubator programs offer funding and mentorship, but few implement such structured milestone requirements." "That was my grandfather's innovation," Tyler acknowledged. "The offshore account structure that became our blueprint." Walter nodded. "And that's precisely what caught the Commission's attention. We've studied dozens of entrepreneurial support programs nationwide. Most have abysmal success rates. Less than 10% of funded ventures achieve sustainable profitability. And you believe our approach could improve those outcomes?" Diana asked. "The preliminary data suggests so." Walter opened his laptop to display a presentation. "We've analyzed the Mitchell Technologies case study from your book, along with the first quarter metrics from this program. The structured milestone approach appears to increase follow-through by nearly 40%. The discussion continued for hours, exploring the practical aspects of scaling the model nationally. Walter explained that the Commission had secured bipartisan support for entrepreneurship development as an economic growth strategy, with funding appropriated for 5 years of program implementation. Each university would adapt the framework to their regional economy, Walter explained. The core elements, staged funding, milestone accountability, intergenerational mentorship, would remain consistent, but the focus areas would reflect local needs and opportunities. As the meeting concluded, Walter made an unexpected proposal. "Harold, we'd like you to serve as an honorary advisor to the Commission. Your experience bridging generational perspectives on entrepreneurship is unique. At my age, advisory roles are about all I can manage," I replied with a self-deprecating smile. "But I'd be honored to contribute." After Walter departed, Tyler, Diana, and I remained in the conference room, processing the magnitude of what had been proposed. "This goes far beyond anything we envisioned," Diana said, her academic reserve giving way to visible excitement. "A national network of structured entrepreneurship programs could fundamentally alter the landscape of business formation in this country." Tyler seemed uncharacteristically quiet, staring out the window at the university campus below. "You're unusually contemplative," I observed. I'd have expected more celebration. He turned back to us with a thoughtful expression. "I'm just thinking about how far we've come from that day in your workshop when I demanded your retirement savings. How a conflict over money transformed into something with potential national impact." "That transformation is what makes this story compelling," Diana noted. "It's not just about business success. It's about relational growth and wisdom transfer across generations." As Diana excused herself to prepare for a class, Tyler and I lingered in the conference room. "There's something else on your mind," I prompted, recognizing the subtle signs of his internal deliberation. Tyler nodded. "The European acquisition of Greensight is proceeding. If it completes as planned, I'll have significant capital and, more importantly, time flexibility." "And you're considering deeper involvement with the mentorship program expansion," I guessed, more than considering. "I'm preparing to propose a matching fund through the Mitchell Family Foundation. For every dollar the Commission invests in regional programs, our foundation would contribute 50 cents specifically for participant funding. The financial commitment would be substantial, potentially tens of millions of dollars over 5 years. It would transform the foundation from a modest family philanthropy to a major player in entrepreneurial development." "That's a significant pivot for the foundation," I observed. "You've discussed this with the board?" "Preliminary conversations only. I wanted your input first." I considered the proposal carefully. The foundation had been established with proceeds from the Mitchell Technologies acquisition, originally focused on local entrepreneurship education. This expansion would align with its mission while dramatically increasing its scope and impact. "You know what strikes me most about this evolution?" I said finally. "The compounding effect of structured support. What began as my attempt to protect my retirement savings while helping you grow has multiplied repeatedly, first through Mitchell Technologies, then through Greensight, now potentially through entrepreneurs nationwide." Tyler nodded. "Exponential rather than linear impact. Each generation builds upon and expands the previous one's contribution, which is exactly how healthy families and societies function," I added. "Not through dependency or isolation, but through structured interdependence and knowledge transfer." As we left the center that afternoon, we passed the wall displaying photographs of local entrepreneurial success stories. Soon, similar displays might exist in university centers throughout the country, each representing businesses built through structured support and intergenerational wisdom. The following week, the Mitchell Family Foundation Board unanimously approved Tyler's matching fund proposal. The press release announcing the partnership with the National Commission generated unexpected attention. including feature articles in major business publications and invitations for Tyler and me to speak at entrepreneurship conferences. Elijah. Washington, the promising young entrepreneur from the inaugural cohort, stopped by my home after the announcement, bringing coffee and pastries. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said as we sat on my back porch. "What you and Tyler have created, it's changing everything for people like me." "How is your platform development progressing?" I asked. "Ahead of schedule, actually." His eyes lit up with entrepreneurial fire. "We've signed 15 tradespeople now, exceeding our first milestone target. The second round of funding will help us complete the customer-facing interface." "And what will you do when you achieve success?" I asked, curious about his longer-term vision. Elijah didn't hesitate. "Pay it forward, build something sustainable, then help others do the same." His answer embodied exactly what we'd hoped to: instill through the program not just business acumen, but a perspective that viewed success as something to be replicated and expanded rather than hoarded. As Elijah departed with a promise to keep me updated on his progress, I reflected on how the Mitchell Mentorship Program was fostering connections that crossed traditional boundaries of age, background, and experience. Each participant brought unique perspectives, creating a rich ecosystem of collaborative growth. That evening, Tyler called to share progress on the national expansion plans. The Commission had identified 12 universities for the initial phase, with implementation scheduled to begin the following academic year. "Walter asked if you'd be willing to record a video message for the orientation sessions," Tyler reported. "Something about the philosophy behind the structured milestone approach." "I'd be happy to," I agreed. "Though the philosophy is quite simple. Trust enhanced by accountability creates the optimal conditions for growth." "Simple, yet profoundly effective," Tyler noted. "The older I get, the more I appreciate that the most powerful principles are often the least complicated." As we ended the call, I thought about how our shared journey, from confrontation over retirement savings to nationwide entrepreneurial initiative, exemplified that very simplicity. The structured approach that had transformed my grandson from an impulsive dreamer to a thoughtful business leader was, at its core, merely the application of timeless wisdom to modern challenges. My offshore account, created to protect my financial security, had indeed had other plans that extended far beyond dollars and cents to touch lives across generations and potentially throughout the nation. Sometimes the most meaningful legacies emerge not from careful planning, but from the unexpected ways we respond to challenging moments. On my 82nd birthday, I found myself seated in an auditorium at the National Entrepreneurship Summit in Chicago. The event marked the official launch of the Structured Entrepreneurship Initiative, which would implement the Mitchell Mentorship model across 27 universities nationwide. My health had declined significantly over the previous year. A series of minor strokes had affected my mobility and stamina, though thankfully not my mental acuity. Tyler had arranged specialized travel accommodations and insisted I use a wheelchair for the event, overriding my stubborn protests with gentle persistence. "Today isn't about pride, Grandpa," he'd said. "It's about witnessing what you helped create." The summit gathered an impressive assembly of business leaders, educators, and policymakers. Melissa sat beside me, having taken a rare break from her nursing director position to attend this milestone event. On my other side sat Elijah Washington, whose trade services platform had exceeded all expectations, recently securing a $2 million expansion investment after proving sustainable profitability. "I wouldn't have missed this for anything," Elijah told me before the program began. "Your approach changed my life's trajectory." The opening presentation featured success metrics from the original Portland State program. 8 of the 10 inaugural cohort entrepreneurs had established viable businesses, creating a total of 47 new jobs in the region. The foundation's return on investment stood at 142% after just 18 months, an extraordinary figure compared to typical startup success rates. Walter Chen took the stage to outline the national initiative's structure and objectives. Behind him, a large screen displayed a map of participating universities, spanning from Maine to Hawaii, Minnesota to Florida. What makes this initiative unique, Walter explained, is its foundation in a proven family business case study. The Mitchell approach demonstrates that entrepreneurship flourishes not through unrestricted funding, but through structured support combined with clear accountability. The audience's attention intensified as Walter introduced Tyler, who would deliver the keynote address. At 34, my grandson had matured into a respected business leader and philanthropist, though I still occasionally glimpsed the impetuous young man who had once demanded my retirement savings. Tyler began by acknowledging the distinguished guests, then departed from formal protocol to ask me to raise my hand. My grandfather, Harold Mitchell, the man whose wisdom and structured approach made all of this possible. The audience offered warm applause as Tyler continued. Our story began not with harmony, but with conflict. I approached my grandfather, demanding a significant portion of his retirement savings for a business venture. His response, neither a flat refusal nor unconditional support, created the framework that would transform both my business approach and our relationship. As Tyler recounted our journey, I noticed members of the audience taking notes, particularly during his explanation of milestone-based funding and accountability mechanisms. What had begun as a private family matter had evolved into a transferable model with potential national impact. The offshore account my grandfather established to protect his financial security, Tyler explained, ultimately protected me from my own worst tendencies: impulsivity, overconfidence, and resistance to accountability. The structured investment approach he created became not just a funding mechanism, but a developmental tool. Following Tyler's address, the program showcased entrepreneurs from the Portland pilot program. Elijah presented his platform's growth metrics and spoke eloquently about how the milestone requirements had forced him to focus on fundamental business viability before pursuing expansion. Each funding stage required proven results, Elijah explained. This created a rhythm of execution and reflection that businesses rarely develop naturally. It's like training wheels that teach balance before they're removed. The metaphor resonated with me deeply. That was precisely what I'd tried to provide for Tyler, training wheels that would eventually become unnecessary as he developed his own balance and momentum. During the luncheon that followed, university presidents and program directors sought me out, eager to discuss implementation details for their regions. Despite my physical limitations, I found myself energized by their enthusiasm and commitment to structured entrepreneurial development. A woman in her early 60s introduced herself as Dr. Regina Alvarez, entrepreneurship director at a university in New Mexico. Mr. Mitchell, your approach particularly resonates in communities like ours, she explained. Many of our aspiring entrepreneurs come from families with no business experience or connections. The structured milestone process provides guardrails they wouldn't otherwise have. That's exactly why this model matters, I agreed. It democratizes entrepreneurship by creating artificial versions of the benefits that typically come from business-oriented family backgrounds. As the day progressed, I observed Tyler moving confidently among business leaders and policymakers, articulating our vision with clarity and conviction. There was no trace of the defensive posturing or charm-offensive tactics he'd once relied upon. Instead, he exhibited genuine listening skills, thoughtful responses, and a collaborative approach to problem-solving. The summit concluded with an announcement that exceeded even our ambitious expectations. The Department of Commerce had approved a matching grant program that would triple the initiative's impact. For every dollar the Mitchell Foundation contributed, federal funding would add 2 more, potentially creating a $120 million entrepreneurship development fund over 5 years. As attendees departed for a reception, Tyler wheeled me to a quiet corner of the venue where we could process the day's events privately. I never imagined this, I admitted, feeling a complexity of emotions: pride, amazement, and a touch of wistfulness that Linda wasn't here to witness this evolution of our family legacy. None of us did, Tyler agreed. But that's the beauty of structured growth, isn't it? You create conditions for development without predetermining the exact outcome. Just like raising children, I observed. You provide boundaries and support, then watch with wonder as they become more than you envisioned. Tyler smiled at the parallel. Do you remember what you told me the day we signed the original investment agreement? You said, "This isn't about controlling you. It's about helping you control yourself." The memory was clear despite the years that had passed. I believed that then, and I believe it now. Self-discipline is the foundation of all meaningful achievement. And of all meaningful relationships, Tyler added. The structure you created wasn't just about business metrics. It was about building trust between us. As we rejoined the main group for the closing reception, Melissa approached with a glass of water and my evening medication. Ever the nurse, she monitored my health with professional vigilance combined with daughterly concern. You should be incredibly proud, she told me as I took the pills. Who would have thought Tyler's demand for your retirement savings would lead to all this? Life's most significant transformations often begin with moments of tension, I replied. It's how we respond to those moments that determines their ultimate impact. The reception featured displays highlighting each participating university's regional focus. Some would emphasize technology startups, others agricultural innovation or healthcare solutions, each adapting the Mitchell model to their specific economic landscape while maintaining the core principles of staged funding and accountability. Elijah joined us briefly before departing for a flight back to Portland. I've been invited to serve as a mentor in next year's cohort, he shared with evident pride. Full circle, from being guided to guiding others. The essence of sustainable growth, I noted, knowledge transfer across generations. As the event concluded and attendees dispersed to hotels or airports, Tyler, Melissa, and I returned to our hotel suite for a private family dinner. The conversation flowed easily between reflections on the day's events and memories of our journey. Together. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd simply written that check when Tyler first asked? Melissa mused over dessert. Occasionally, I admitted. Though I suspect we all know the likely outcome. Tyler nodded ruefully. The business would have failed, the money would have vanished, and our relationship would have been damaged, possibly irreparably. Instead, your offshore account had other plans, Melissa said, adopting my phrase with a smile. Better plans than any of us could have imagined, I agreed. As we concluded our meal, Tyler raised his glass in a toast. To Harold Mitchell, who understood that true wealth isn't measured in dollars but in wisdom shared and relationships strengthened. Melissa raised her glass as well. To Dad, who found a way to say neither yes nor no, but instead created a third path that helped everyone grow. I felt a fullness of heart that transcended the day's public accolades. This private moment with my daughter and grandson, acknowledging our complex journey from conflict to collaboration, meant more than any official recognition or program expansion. Later that evening, as Tyler helped me prepare for bed, he shared news he'd been holding back to avoid overshadowing the summit. Elijah's platform received an acquisition offer yesterday, he revealed. $8 million from a national home services company. That's extraordinary, I said. Will he accept? He's considering it, but with conditions remarkably similar to ones I negotiated with SteelCorp years ago, maintaining operational autonomy and ensuring his team remains intact. The parallel wasn't lost on me. The structured approach had created not just successful businesses, but a lineage of entrepreneurial wisdom, passing from generation to generation like a treasured inheritance. The ripples continue, I observed. From my offshore account to Mitchell Technologies to GreenSight to Elijah's venture, and now potentially across the country. And it all began with you saying no to what I asked for, but yes to what I truly needed, Tyler said quietly. That's a lesson I'll never forget, and one I hope to pass on to my own children someday. As Tyler bid me good night and dimmed the lights, I reflected on the extraordinary journey we had traveled together. My offshore account, established as a protective measure for my retirement security, had indeed had other plans. Plans that extended far beyond financial considerations to touch lives across generations. Sometimes the most profound legacies emerge not from grand gestures, but from principled boundaries, structured support, and the courage to choose the harder path when easier. Options present themselves. What began as a tense confrontation in my workshop had blossomed into a national initiative that would help countless entrepreneurs navigate their own journeys from ambition to achievement. The offshore account was long gone, its funds transformed into businesses, initiatives, and relationships of far greater value than mere monetary security. Yet its essence, the principle of protection through structure rather than restriction, lived on in each entrepreneur who would benefit from the ASEA Structured Entrepreneurship Initiative. As I drifted toward sleep, I felt a profound sense of completion. The circle that began with one grandfather saying "not yet" instead of "no" to his grandson's request had expanded to encompass a growing community of mentors and entrepreneurs, each adding their own wisdom to a continuing legacy of structured growth and intergenerational collaboration. My offshore account had indeed had other plans, better ones than I could have possibly imagined. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.